dice el corazón que debo quererla.
Me grita la conciencia.
Que no es hora de querer, no hace falta una desilusión.
Me dice el corazón.
Que no se puede querer con inteligencia.
Me grita la conciencia.
Que no se ponen de acuerdo la conciencia y la razón.
Campanero, bate suave, respalda la melodía y afirma la tradición que hoy en día, tú lo sabes, quieren esconder la clave y olvidarse del bongo. Y dice, quieren esconder la clave y olvidarse del bongo. Por eso mismo es que el buen bailador va llorando los tiempos del rico son. Campanero, no me falles, escucha siempre la clave, nunca olvides el tambo. Oye, escucha siempre la clave, nunca olvides el tambo. Claro que no, claro que no.
Welcome, everybody. Oh, it's not on. Hello, testing. Welcome, everybody. This is our large group session for the second day of the convening. Woo! We have a section over here on the left for convener familia, who can sit and will be observing, not necessarily participating in the inner circle and the outer circle. We also have mats for people that may want to take a break from sitting down, who may need to give their backs a little bit of a break. Now Edgar's gonna speak a little bit to the rules of the space.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Gosh, my cold. I'm sorry, it's gonna, with my accent and the cold, I'm gonna have to enunciate. So we have this session this morning about inner and outer circle. And it's about listening and sharing, and being honest and being kind and being receptive. The rules of the game are very simple. We have two circles. You guys outside, and then the inner circle. There's a group of people that have volunteered to talk about several subjects. The first subject is challenges that you find. Challenges is the first, right? Challenges that you find and find working in Miami as theater artists. And that circle will sit here and with a moderator, which is, I think, is not Ashley, it's Gina. Gina, hi Gina. Hi everyone from the web, Stokely, Dylan. Good morning. So nice. So they'll sit here and Gina will moderate with questions, and they'll be talking about, with a mic, we have to make sure so that our folks through the web can hear. And they'll have about 10 minutes of talking, and then if you're outside in the circle and you want to, after 10 minutes, the moderator will tell you, you want to join the group and share some of your thoughts about challenges working in the theater in Miami, then you come and you sit down. Thank you, Adriana. And you'll tap, and then the person will quietly move without say anything like, oh no, I hate you, or no. Quietly go, and then the person that tapped the shoulder will sit down. And that's the dynamic. Then we'll have another of those with another subject. Any questions? It's going to be pretty clear. Yes, please. And so, Adriana?
And then just to add a couple things, if you are sitting in the inner circle, you don't have to wait till someone taps out. If you want to open the space up and you want to go back to the outer circle, you can feel free and you can leave the seat empty. Also, the conversation that happens in the afternoon is going to be a follow-up to this, so make sure you write notes because we're going to have breakout sessions and lunch in between these two large sessions. So just for yourself, if you want to write notes, so you have that for yourself as a reference.
All right, so the first challenge circle, Gina's going to moderate, and we would like to call Carmen Pelaez. I just saw Carmen. Olga Granda. I have not seen Olga. Oh, there you go. Isaac Polanco. Orlando Addison. I saw Orlando a while ago. Victoria Vicky. Allí. Marlene. I saw Marlene. She was with my winning group in the trivia. Then the moderator, of course. And that's it.
So can I grab the microphone and move it
Yes. And just remember that this first iteration of this is locals only.
Oh, yes, of course. Hello, good morning, everyone. Buenos días. Vamos a dar inicio a esta sesión. Please forgive me, I'm turning my back to you guys probably a lot. So we're gonna get started with challenges of working in Miami. My name is Gina Sandy Diaz, I'll be moderating. And basically, I just wanna say a few things before we get started. I think it's important that we create an open, honest space, and hopefully we can get to some difficult conversations. This is a space where if we don't have those conversations, where are we gonna have them? And so please, feel free to, with honesty and kindness, as it was said earlier, that we can touch base on some of the issues that are really impacting the work here because they resonate in the nation as well, right? So with that, I just want to start with a very general question, which would be, what would you guys consider are some of the biggest challenges of making theater and working in the Miami area? And maybe also introduce yourselves when you get the mic to speak. So does anybody wish to start? Awesome, there's a mic right there also. So what are some identified challenges that you find after working in Miami?
I'm happy to start. Good morning, I'm Olga Granda. I'm outgoing. I've been executive director of Miami New Drama for the past 2 years. Miami New Drama is a fairly new, local resident company now at the Colony Theater. And I can say that I think one of the biggest challenges in founding a new theater organization and getting new audiences to try it out is just that there has been a certain vacuum for a certain amount of years in terms of the quantity of theater that's been happening in Miami. So it's still kind of surprisingly, but new thing to do. It's not on the radar of a lot of locals, to-do list of, what am I gonna go do this weekend? That's something interesting and beautiful and lovely. So it's still kind of a entrance level of, oh, you can come see a local theater company and support it and see something exciting and amazing and good quality.
So that's one of the challenges. Can anybody else respond to that? Or experience similar trouble? Yeah.
I mean, I'm in an interesting position because I'm coming back and trying to gauge the water again. I can say that for sure when I left, a main reason why I left was because I didn't feel there was jobs here. Back when I thought I was an actor, which is cute. But I think that the coming back, I think it's like I'm trying to gauge who the audience is. And I'm not just talking about the theater people. Like I see the same faces and we know who they are. but what is actually going to make the greater Miami a community that actually goes and engages with art.
So reaching audiences is one of the big challenges.
I would agree with that, Vicky, and Olga. I think that there's been such, when Coconut Grove Playhouse closed, that created a vacuum. So whereas going to see theater was a natural part of, you know, the cultural landscape, art, visual art became much more prominent. What I have found, and I think probably Cuban artists in Miami find this a lot, there's nothing Cubans love more than a mirror. So they'll show up for us, right? Like when it's a Cuban show, they show up, right? It sounds really like trivial, but some of the challenges are actually like traffic or location or parking, even with Uber, because it's older, like everywhere else in the world, often people that can afford theater are older and they don't want to go through the traffic. They don't want to go to Miami Beach. Or like literally somebody asked me, my show that was just at Miami New Drama, which is an incredible company. I suggest everybody send your play to Michelle Hausman at Miami New Drama because he's absolutely wonderful to work with and I adore him, and that's my jam. Literally people would say, so when are you bringing Fake to Miami? And I was like, it's in Miami Beach. It's 20 minutes just closer to the water. And they're like, well, I'm like, I really wanted to kill people. But they would literally say this to me. So I think sometimes logistics, although developing theater culture is important, and I think there's a lot of work right now that's doing that because there's exciting work. The guys at Villain are creating an incredible culture and just a consistent, affordable thing to do. And Vicky and Vanessa with Abre Camino and, you know, Juggernaut Theater Company and Michelle Hausman, we're creating that. The other thing I would say is the Anglo powers that be in Miami, they don't want to that's like the one area that because of language we haven't infected, right? Because like Cubans and Latinos have taken over everything else in Miami, but they're very tough about their they're like, oh, there's no theater audiences in Miami. And I say this all the time, I have yet to go to a Spanish language play that isn't sold out. So there are theater audiences in Miami, they're just not responding to the work you're producing. So the Anglos get very stingy with money for Spanish language theater companies or Latino. There's a very reputable theater company that in their 20-year life has only produced one Latino playwright in Miami, which is like seriously ridiculous. So I find the Anglo, but like everything else in Miami, when the Anglo gets mad, we're just like, that's cute. We're going to do it our way anyways. So I would say like traffic, and then in one scope, I feel that the lack of unity between the Anglo and Spanish language theater is a challenge.
So
Thank you.
I want to jump off the comment that Carmen made about the mirror. I think that's true of every community. I think that the Miami New Drama season last year proved that when we opened with One Night in Miami, which was an African-American cast, not just on stage, but the creative team. You know, by the end of the run, and again, this was on South Beach, by the end of the run, the audience was absolutely reflective of who was on stage. The African-American community came out in hordes to see that play. And then we followed it with Carmen's play, which was Cuban-American playwright, and boom, you know, completely different audience overnight. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's true of all across the board. And then that comes back to what Carmen said about, you know, the demographics. If Miami is 70% foreign born or at least outside of state, then what's being put on stage needs to also be exactly those same demographics and percentages.
Right.
And that's not the case right now with the theater companies in existence.
So there's a disconnect between what is being produced and what the audience is seeking. Yeah, I want to hear these two voices as well.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Orlando Edison. I'm the founder of the Ernesto Gamboa Project, and one of the things that we are trying to do is to basically, you know, highlight the Afro-Latino community, and the Afro-Latino community in Miami and in Florida is growing tremendously here, and it's a community that many people are not really focusing on and paying attention to. One incident that happened last year is when one of the theaters here in Miami started to play or portray a black Latino on stage, which they call the blackface, and which created a huge controversy. And and that really brought out the community that is in behind the scene or is not on the spotlight, which is the Afro-Latino community. And I agree with you that one of the major obstacles we have here is not only transportation but location here, getting a place to go, finding parking place for people to have access or easy access to the theater. And the other one, and I think that to create, because you mentioned about the putting a play for African Americans. Imagine if you have a play that includes the history, the life, or the identity of people of African descent in Latin America and our stories in there. I think that theater will have a majority of people not only living here but coming from other places that would want to see and participate and really support some of that. So including a aspect of the African diaspora in Latin America in the theater can also be a positive thing to add to the industry here.
Right. Positive and necessary, absolutely.
Can I?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, excuse me.
Well, let me introduce myself. My name is Marlene Marcos, and I also I'm the VP of Education at Just the Funny, which is an improv theater here in Miami. And I'm proud to say that we've, in the last 3-4 years, we've developed a whole team of Spanish-speaking improvisers. And so much so that, we've traveled, to different cities where we've been invited to perform there. And it's been very successful. And we're actually about to launch a Latinx improv festival next month. So we're very excited about that. But I think one of the challenges that I've seen here is, aside from developing audiences, is that we're all in our silos. Mm-hmm. And that's an issue because there's so much wonderful theater that's happening here and creative artists of all sorts. But the reality of it is that I'm so busy running my theater, doing my shows, doing my things, that I probably won't be able to go to your thing. And that's a reality because we're all so busy doing it, and let's be honest. I would love to go support other people's works, but it's hard. And the other thing is, something that was done many years back is that I think we need to have a bit of more of a cross-pollination of sorts. I think in a playbill many years ago, you would go to attend a theater, and in the playbill there was an insert. So if you were sitting at one theater in town, you'd open up your program, and then there would be a whole list of other theaters doing other things elsewhere. So, and every theater in Miami would have this. So even if you were seeing one show in one theater, in 2 or 3 weeks, you can go see another show somewhere else. So it was like, there was that sense of community versus competition. And I think that's something that we really need to focus on and just say, hey guys, we're all in this together. If we all support one another, we're gonna see the dividends on that.
Yes, it's time to open up. So if anybody else from the out circle wants to take the empty seats, please go ahead.
Can I
please
just
continue.
respond
Yes.
to that? Because I think this is something that's interesting because it's tying of these two things. One thing is that there's a solid community that I see as someone who's like coming from the outside and sometimes feels like I should shut up because I haven't been here for the past 6 years, is that there's a tight community, but that's of a specific group. Mm-hmm. And the moment you start challenging it, and it's something that we're seeing right now with Amparo, going to what you're saying. Right now what we're seeing with Amparo is we have 2 bilingual tracks, meaning that we're accessible to the people, or half accessible. I wish it was totally in Spanish, but there's half accessible to the people whose story this is about. And we haven't gotten complaints from the people who speak Spanish. Mm. We've gotten complaints from like Anglo people who have said, and I don't want to turn this into like those bad people. It's not that, but it's just the custom of like, you're not used to not understanding. And so the moment that there's a section that you don't understand, all of a sudden it's a problem. So what's happening is actually deeper than just theater. It's our community. Like our community doesn't understand how both languages live here. This is where I think that Miami's beautiful, where it's like, this is like where people came and made this home their own. Like there's the Hispanic person is the business owner and the person cleaning the floors and the person in the middle. It's that, and it's blended. And something that's quite surprising is what Carmen is saying, that I didn't see it, but that there is that hold of like up to there. Like I thought, I'm like, we have it figured out. We have racism figured out in Miami. I mean, we're the problem. We're the ones that are racist. But like, there's no racism. There's no problem. And then all of a sudden you feel it in your own town and you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. I thought we were woke because like, you know, like we speak Spanish and we ask for colada instead of like a tall macchiato. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's something I just want to toss in, that it's also like a deeper issue within Miami that we're not addressing because I think, or I used to think that we were like above it, that we surpassed that. We found the loophole in America.
Good. So let me wrap up really quick all the stuff that we have been mentioning. We've talked about developing audiences. We talked about the getting to the theater due to traffic and public transportation. We talked about the inclusion of more Afro-Latinos and also Latinx stories from Latin America, more represented on stage. We talked about bilingualism and how that might cause problems for some people, not for others, etc. So I just want to recap, so in case the people who just joined in want to jump in, and I also want to get over there to your voice, and then I'll come back to you.
I kind of want to reiterate what Carmen said. I mean, I think I always talk about the fact that there's islands here of people doing theater out there. I don't know many of the faces here, and I'm surprised not to know many of the faces here, though I've been doing theater in Miami for about 3 years. My name is Isaac. I am the executive director of Main Street Players in Miami Lakes. It's a small theater company. Miami Lakes has been around for about 43 years, and we recently, about 3 years ago, became a professional theater. And so there's I feel like there's two sides to the story here. There's like Carmen was saying, there's a sort of Latino theater, and that is even divided into the people that are like in Calle Ocho doing like the sort of very commercial work, and the work that's good out there, the work that you find at Miami New Drama, at the Miami-Dade Performing Arts Center with Nilo Cruz, and work that's being done there. But then there's the Anglo work that sort of lives on its own. So there's definitely different islands here that are hard to bridge together.
Yeah, hi, I'm Alex Alvarez. I'm a performer here. I guess I'm going to talk about it in terms of being a part of the performer for hire community. I've been here for 10 years now. I think of the community in terms of where I can work, what opportunities are being given to me. I guess my perspective is less on audience because I'm not putting up the work, I'm not, you know. And I find that there is this divide between the English-speaking community and the Spanish-speaking community. In terms of, there seems to be a very rich Spanish-speaking theater history down here. There seems to be, people go to it, you know, Spanish-speaking audiences go to it. What I find is that there are less spaces for, I'm in the union, I'm an equity actor, there are less spaces for us, and there's a reason I joined the union. I wanted as a performer to be able to have insurance, to be able to have those things. It's not just some random decision that I made. And I found that it took me a while to work, but then I found work. The spaces that I work that give me insurance, that actually hire me, aren't like a Miami New Drama that is telling our stories, you know? So I find that that's an interesting divide, is that the spaces that do work that is in English, and the spaces that do work that are in Spanish, and the spaces that can afford equity actors, and the places that can't. Because there is a community that does put up work for our kinds of stories, but then they can't really, I mean, they say they can't afford or things like that, us. So.
I wanted to actually talk to you. Hi, my name is Elena Maria Garcia. I'm also a performer and playwright and educator. And I do agree. As a performer, you can't make a living. and you have to have 50,000 other jobs in order to sustain and live in your art. At the same time, there's some theater that our audience, and I'm speaking of my lovely people, won't pay because they can't afford it. Okay? There are a lot of shows I would love to go see. I'm like, how much? I can't do that. Yeah. I'm sorry, I can't. And to create and build a community that's going to go see plays that our that we want can't afford even the $30 or the $40. I mean, I can't. I'd love to go see Amparo Mama. I can't afford it, and I don't drink, so.
Yeah, let's open up and discuss that.
You can't, and that's important. And in order to build this community, it's like a catch-22. You have to pay the bills, you have to pay the everything. But how do you, with the ticket price? Of course, you have to. Then the grants, you gotta wait. Did you use the right adjective? Did you get?
We all know
the
that.
thing.
Does somebody else want a response to this same topic right here? Yes. I'm gonna open it to the first who just joined the circle, and then we'll pass it. Yes.
Hi everyone, my name's Alicia Cruz. I'm a student at FIU Theater, and I'm really enjoying this conversation because I'm at a point where I'm going to be graduating and I'm a performer. And you know, the decision, like, do I stay here? Do I go seek a graduate program? Do I move to a place that will foster my artistry, you know? And that's something that I think about quite often is, like, Miami has one of the highest costs of living in the nation, and at the same time our wage system is incredibly low, and the way we've developed as a city does not conduce itself to public transportation, to somebody being able to go to a theater on a Friday night if they don't have a car. So I think about these things in just like the context here of wanting to work and wanting to create community. Like, how do we as a theater community build something that is stronger than the political context that we're in, so that people do have access to theater, so that we do have access to work? And so I'm really enjoying this conversation. I wanted to put that in there because you all are part of this community, and that's really awesome.
And when a parking, and I mean, I've been given free tickets to go see something at the Arch, and I'm like, how much is parking? And to get there, and et cetera, I go, I won't go. Just because it is so, and then you get to the theater, and when you sit down, you're already so angry because you were like, what the journey to just get there, and even though you got free tickets, you're pissed as hell, you know. And I just want to land on the community, on the Spanish and English. I mean, both of my daughters refused to speak Spanish when they were growing up. Now they're learning. They've embraced the fact that they need to speak another language, etc. So, but to go see Spanish, even though they identify themselves as Cuban Americans, it takes a really, they want to see something, but they're like, is it in English? Because I really can appreciate if it's in English, if it's not. And for us to say, bueno, no, you have to understand it in our language. That's the thing about Miami, is that, again, we're on both sides of the aisle. And so when we do create work that is bilingual and in Spanish, I mean, we have.
I just want to. Oh, okay. Well.
Here, and there.
Okay. I just want to touch a little bit in terms of what you just said. In terms of, and just to piggyback on what you said about your daughters. My two children, when we back in Honduras, I used to speak to them in English only, and they would come to me and say, "Well, I'm sorry, but I am not a gringo, so I'm not speaking English." Now they're living here in the United States, and they don't want to speak Spanish. So there's a situation there. But here's the thing in terms of the audience, with the Hispanics, and I think there's a huge problem here. Unfortunately, we don't have, or we have not developed in the Hispanic community this concept or idea to go to theater. And I'm going to give you an example. If you give someone a ticket to go to a play, a theater, or give them a ticket to go to a soccer game, I mean, I'm quite sure the soccer game will be the preference, or to watch a telenovela, for example, between a play. Most of the Hispanics will prefer to see the telenovela than to go to watch a play. The point here is that in order to get the audience, I think that the theater community needs to find ways to reach out to perhaps a new generation that's coming up. The new generation needs to be trained and needs to be encouraged to do that, so that when they get to a certain age and they get a job, they can say, okay, I am not going to pay for the telenovela, but I'm going to go to the theater to see that. Exactly. There is a way of doing it, yes.
Sorry, just to respond, and if somebody wants to take my seat, because I know I've talked a lot. But so one thing is that I do think that that's happening right now. I think that we are at the crux of training people, and we are talking about, it happens with Miami Motel Stories, it happens with Fake, it happens with Amparo, that you're seeing people that don't go to theater starting to come to theater. Again, some of that stuff is event-based. For example, and I love that parking's coming up, because I didn't think it was that important until I realized something. For example, we have free parking, right? I'm pretty sure we're one of the highest charging tickets right now, because we are hiring 30 artists right now daily to do their job, plus crew, plus all this stuff, and that costs money, right? And I wish that, and we're finding the way that we can, but we have to be responsible where it is accessible in a way that we can maintain and make sure that people have jobs, while also making sure that the right people are coming to the show. We also don't want only a specific amount of people to come to our show. But there is a reality. The reality is that theater costs money, and it does, and we have to find a financial structure or something, and that goes deeper, and that goes outside of the inner circle into the outer circle. We have to talk about this whole like beggars mode of operation that we have, because as we're moving into like these testing out for profits is also where that ticket price goes up, until it becomes a demand where we can find the balance. It is the humongous cost of living 1,000%. It's the same thing that happens in New York. A big reason I moved back was because I'm flying around all the time and I'm paying a humongous piece of rent in New York. I'm like, why am I paying this random landlord when I can pay my parents to rent a space? You know what I mean? Anyway, all of that. The bilingual thing, and then I promise I'll step out.
Liar.
But the bilingual thing is that what's interesting is in the structure that we have right now, we have 5 tracks. 3 of the tracks are purely in English, and 2 of them are bilingual. And so what's interesting is that we're trying, and we have accessibility, like ADA accessibility. We're trying it out, and there's still always something that just we're gonna screw the pooch. It's gonna happen. But I think that what we can learn from that is that I think there is a grace learning period of like, well, how is it that it's not that the whole play is in Spanish or that you're missing something? Actually, the writing is done in a way so that you can understand what's happening. How do we make it accessible so that wall that is there, both ways, right? Eso está en inglés, I'm not going. That's in Spanish, I'm not going. How are we like kind of erasing that barrier of language so that it's like theater is theater? You go to BAM in New York and you watch a piece in freaking, like, I literally watched a dance piece in Shakespeare where they're like, blah, 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 and I understood the freaking thing. So it's like an illusion that I think goes even further into our country, where I see that every time there's a Spanish speaker or a speaker who speaks with an accent, they're like, that person's stupid. And that's not true.
Well, something I always say is we may speak with accents, but we don't think with accents. And if you speak with an accent, that means you know more than one language. We have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I don't care if somebody doesn't understand. I don't. Let them come. I've seen Chekhov in Russian, and I've been moved to tears because the theater's essence, and if you're doing it right, you're capturing an essence. I don't care about making people comfortable. I want blood and guts on the drawing room floor. That's what I'm attracted to. I want to be upset when I leave a theater, or I want to be elated when I leave a theater. And I think that a challenge in Miami sometimes is that people they will think that a soccer game is worth it, but not a play, because they don't see theater when they're young. That was something part of the vacuum that happened. If you get, there's a study that's coming out now, but if you get kids to see theater before the age of 8, 82% of them stay theater goers for the rest of their lives. Speaking back to the Afro-Latino thing, and just general theater companies, there's no reason why we can't have cross like pollination. There's no reason like why M Theater shouldn't have a Cuban audience, right? I was influenced by everybody growing up, but now out of safety and out of wanting to feel safe, we stick to our own, like our tribalism across the board is off the charts. I don't know how many One Night in Miami people came to see Fake, even though they saw an excellent product with One Night in Miami. I don't know how many fake people went to see Viva la Parranda, which was Afro-Venezuelans doing their thing. Like, I don't know what the layout, like the thing was, but I would encourage it. I mean, we have the Harlem of the South in Overtown. I didn't know that until I moved back. And I discovered it's a new city. And I think we really have to break away. We have to stop acting like beggars. I really responded to it because we're abundant. I said this yesterday. We have so much to give. And we have to make time to go see other people's stuff. I'm guilty of it. But we have to make time to go see other people's things, whether we think it's going to be good or not, just to create that thing. And we have to really support each other. And, you know, when you're trying to protect yours, you're scared. I don't want to work from fear. I want to work from fearlessness. So I just think put it out there, be abundant, support each other. I'm sure everybody gives away tickets whenever every chance they get. I think there's solutions. And also tap your representatives, tap your commissioners, tell them we want a subsidy for this. Give us a grant for this. We want to give 50 tickets away to La Casa de los Viejos on 8th Street. So tap them and say, how can you give? Because I have connections to government, they gave away tickets to Fake to people that would not be able to afford it. Because they gave them as raffles as part of their representation. So don't be afraid to tap local government and let them subsidize the ticket price for people that might not be able to go do that. I think there's a lot of opportunities, and all these problems are really opportunities that I think have easy solutions, but they're a little tedious and they do require legwork that we may not want to do, but we have to.
Yeah. So I think that what we've touched on is that we need new models for financing great theater. It's absolutely true that, I mean, Miami New Drama gives away tickets for everything to certain groups and there is the challenge of, yeah, it's free, but I still have to drive to South Beach, park, you know, the whole bit. So there is still a logistical barrier, and it's not just the ticket price, which means it has to be a bigger thought process other than just giving away tickets to get new audiences. Regarding the language, remember that a lot of people go to opera, and opera is rarely in English or in Spanish, and nobody thinks twice about like, oh, I'm gonna go see this opera in Italian or in German, and because the super titles are gonna be on the wall, like, no problem. I mean, Miami New Drama's the last play, which Carmen mentioned, Viva la Parranda, was in Spanish, but it was sold as part of the English season. You know, it was not differentiated. Mm-hmm. It was like, oh, you bought your season subscription, you got 3 plays in English and 1 in Spanish, and nobody talked about it. And surprisingly, we did not get much response from it. The times that we did get a pushback was when we had a play in English that once in a while had a line in Spanish here or there, and it was also written. So like Queen of Basel, if anybody saw that last year, was a great example. It was also written so that if somebody said something in Spanish, the other person repeated it or made it in a way that you did not miss what was going on if you didn't speak Spanish, but people still felt like, I missed something. And the reality is, and it's true that we're used to it when we're exposed to a lot of languages, the reality is that even when you speak the language, you frequently do not understand what the other person is saying. Right. Right? And so, but kind of pushing people past that idea that just because you didn't know that word doesn't mean that you don't know what the message is or what the sentence means is something that we have to, I think, push. But so new financial models and, you know, pushing people to think beyond language.
Thank you. Lots of interesting things coming up here. We have about 5 minutes left, so if anybody in the outer circle wants to contribute, this is the time. And yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to add a couple of quick things to touch upon something that you said, and as well as Olga, is that we definitely need to educate the young people. Because like you, Carmen, I grew up where my older sisters would take me to the theater, to the Coconut Grove Playhouse, and we would have field trips out to different theaters to see different productions, and we would do different stagings of whatever it was at school. So if people can, do Netflix and chill, and do 8 hours of a show, there's no reason why we can't do 2 hours at a theater. So I think it's re-educating that newer population, that newer generation of people to come out to support live art, live performance, because they will be moved. And so I think it is about developing new audiences and educating that audience regarding that. So, thank you.
Yeah, my point actually is pretty related to that, is that we have one of the most amazing high schools, magnet schools, theater schools in South Florida, District 8, and is one of the most amazing districts for theater in the United States. And so as far as do the kids get it, they get it. They are doing theater. They love theater. What happens afterwards? Where are the opportunities? And I like to think of it as a positive thing. There's space for entrepreneurship. If you are a young person in Miami now, this is what I did 4 years ago. I said, let's build our own theater. We are at a lack of spaces, and our voices are not getting out there because we don't band together and put our voices together to make that happen. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, you could think of, when people think of New York, they're probably thinking of New York in the 70s. When people are thinking of Atlanta, they're probably thinking of Atlanta 20 years ago, when it was really on the come up. We are on the come up now. And I think what really lets us down is that we don't have, we have a diaspora of talent, and I think we're having a renaissance of people coming back now. Vicky, I think you're part of that as well. You know, and the biggest, outside of that, you know, of the young people being able to take control and kind of, you know, get their own voices out there, is journalism. It's just not covered. Marketing should be on every single level, and the fact that Miami Herald doesn't really have a full-time theater critic, but that's not even. I mean, that's one venue. That's one institution for news. I think it's all marketing. Listen, people go to Wynwood and they don't even know why they're there. They don't. They're just walking around and they take a picture on a wall and they're not sure what they think they're going to eat, maybe something. And then they're there for 4 hours. They would love to see your show. They would love to, and have something to do there. And if we can get people to a warehouse district that was nothing 6 years ago, and not just nothing, but like violently nothing, then we can get people to see our plays if we worked on marketing them.
All right, one more response, and then I have one question to ask you all, and we close.
All right, so I'm Luis. I'm one of the students here at FIU, and I keep hearing that we're in silos. We're creating our own spaces and separating. And I actually, it's sad that this is brought up so late in the conversation, but I think that it's, we're making a bigger division. And you mentioned Anglo communities, and this is making them see us as them versus us. Mm-hmm. And I think that one of the main reasons, it was mentioned yesterday in the conversation about making theater in 2020, one of the big reasons that we're not hired is we're hired only as tokens. If they have a token Hispanic, that's it. No more Hispanics go in there. And so I think that one of the things that we should do is we shouldn't be afraid of taking from like film and television tools that they have to normalize our situation. So like the director from Fresh Off the Boat, they're using typical Asian stereotypes that they used to be afraid of. And they're normalizing the situation of Asian community here in the U.S. And I think we have been very afraid. Yesterday we tiptoed around stereotypes because we're afraid of it. And I think we should embrace those stereotypes and then show, yes, I can dance because I'm Hispanic, but I can do much more. And I can do everything that I can just the same as you can. Right. So there's no reason for someone who's completely fluent in English and can talk without an accent to be seen as a token Hispanic.
Well, thank you very much. This has been wonderful. And I think that as a way to wrap up, just if each of you can just say one word that resonated of this conversation, and so that way we can all kind of summarize all the great stuff that was talked about. Is that all right? Yep. All right. We start here and go around.
Let's say entrepreneurship.
Educate.
Accessibility in multiple ways.
New models.
I'm gonna use a phrase, doing the legwork.
Communities.
That's the word I was going to use. Blending.
Inclusiveness.
Because I'm obnoxious, I'm going to quote myself. Abundance.
All right. Do we have 1 second for one? Yeah, go for it.
Because I know that there's the South Florida Theater League. Is that still a thing? Okay. Michael Yanni's the president. Okay, great. Are all these theaters are all these like siloed theaters part of the South Florida Theater League? Okay, just checking. I just want to see what's up.
Everybody pays their dues. I don't know if that means they're part of it.
Yeah, okay. Okay, great. No, that's the next breakout session, I'm sure. But I just, yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Round of applause, please, for panelists. And we're going to move on to the second part.
Gracias, Gina. Thank you, everybody. It's just insightful to listen and process. Thank you for the honesty. That's what we want. We want to hear it and process it and seek solutions. We'll move on now, Armando and Abigail, to the second part. See? The second part of the inner outer circle is opportunities. And we'll call the inner circle panel. And that includes Laura Termini. ¿Dónde está? I saw her. No? No? Okay. Laura. Natalie Cabo. Natalie? Did anybody see Natalie? No? Okay, I did see Michael Leon. Michael? Come on over. Víctor Corián. Lo vi, estuvo conmigo ahorita. Víctor. ¿Dónde está Víctor? He's out there. Ah, good. And Elena Maria Garcia. See, she's here. Fuacata. Jorge Herrera. I haven't seen Jorge. Anybody has seen Jorge Herrera Monroy? No? Okay. Oh, it doesn't have the who's the moderator for this one? Is it? Oh, there you go. Is it? Yeah, but loud, ¿verdad? Chantal. Chantal. Chantal is the moderator. Do we need more people? Okay, so Chantal, come on, take over and call on the people. Thanks.
Hi, buenos dias. Hi, everybody. So we want to invite to help fill out this inner circle folks from the diaspora as well. So we had a focus on locals, but now we want to invite folks from the Miami diaspora. I think that's the cactus sticker. So you're welcome to come in. And maybe two more folks, and then we can leave a few spaces open. Perfect, thank you. So we can leave these spaces open, and then we'll go for the first 10 minutes, and then we'll open it up. And then just a reminder that you can come in and tap someone to invite them out of the circle if there aren't any open spaces. I just ask you to be mindful. If there's someone in the inner circle and they haven't spoken at all, don't tap that person, right? We want to try to hear everybody's voice in the room. And then this conversation, the inner circle conversation will be for locals and diaspora folks specifically. So I'm really excited about this conversation about opportunities. And I think it's really important, the conversation that we've just had about challenges, that we keep this in mind, or what are the opportunities that we can use to address some of those challenges. So I want us to think about these things as linked. So I just want to open up this inner circle to invite you all to speak about what are the opportunities that you see inherent in working in Miami theater. Sure.
this an opportunity for me is family is really important to me. So an opportunity for me is that I get to be close to home, close to my family, and I think what happens is I am part of the diaspora, so I left Miami because like the previous group said, it was really hard to sustain that career here, especially if you're a union actor. But for me, it's important to, as my parents get older, which they're over there, I want to spend more time with them. And all my family's here. I'm in New York, but I'm the only one there. I don't have any family there. So that's a huge thing for me. That's important to me.
Yes. I'm an old cat. I've been working down here for 40 years, and I am though, and I don't mean this humorously, but I am a Broward Cuban, which is it's different, and so I, like Alex, had to find a way to be that chameleon in order to work. But I find that, and Villain Theater, are they still in here somewhere? All right, Baba. Hello, my people. Way back when there were little groups that started small and kind of started flourishing, Mad Cat being one of the groups, etc., that put us, that the community and the space down here allowed that to happen. So those opportunities are here. It's getting that support to keep it there. And Miami actually has more grants and more funding more than Broward. Broward has funding for rodeos. That's the other thing, is that I'm not kidding. And there are a lot of Hispanics that live in Broward. We don't hear anything that's happening in Miami. I'm not kidding you. Nothing. Again, because of the newspaper, we no longer get anything in the Herald, maybe something here and there. But opportunities, people from Broward come down to Miami to be able to do some of their work. I've been very fortunate to make those arteries into certain companies, and that's why I was able to write Fuacata, because of that communication that I had with Zoetic Stage. And because of that, we have been building more and writing more and creating more. But I'm sorry, I digress, I keep going on, is when I sat at an awards and I kept listening to everybody that was being represented, and my name was the only Hispanic name, and the show was the only one represented. And then I sat back and I thought to myself, wait a minute, Elena, you can't get angry. You can't get pissed. It's my fault. It's our fault. Why aren't we pushing that even more and making ourselves more visible and allowing ourselves to be that dominant force? Because I'm going, wait, well, I know that the opportunities may not lend themselves as much, but it is there, and we can do it. And it's small groups that are flourishing, but in support, and have that financial support for them. I mean, and I do agree with, where's my little FIU guy, that the bad Anglos, we can't. They've got their theaters, we've got our stuff. And Miami, we're in Miami. Yes, awesome. We need to hear from you from Broward, by the way. We don't know that you're there. But in having that type of, what am I saying now? Now I digress completely. I went to some other place in my brain. Dale, habla.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to switch gears to education. As far as opportunities go, like many of us here, I left Miami for college to go pursue a degree in theater, and didn't think, people always ask me, well, why did you leave? And I'm like, well, I would be there in a heartbeat if I felt like there were opportunities for me there. And which is a sad thing to say, because then I came here today or yesterday with all this curiosity, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I felt dumb looking at everything that there is here and thinking that there aren't opportunities. Obviously, it comes with its challenges. I've been working in Washington, D.C. for the past 4 years, and I've had full season after full season, but I felt like maybe that wouldn't be the case here, right? Now, what I also noticed living in Washington and other places is the priority of theater education. And it's just for young people. I mean, there are so many programs, grants, funded programs for bringing kids to the theater, kids who would never have access to the theater. And like someone was saying earlier, that's so important, because if you don't grow up knowing that theater is an option, not just to go see, but also to study and to pursue and to tell those stories, that's how it changes with the young people. So I wonder about the opportunities with places like as big as the Arts Center to like these smaller theaters. What does theater education look like here? What does it look like? Do we have student matinees? Are we bringing kids to student matinees? Like, what does that look like? That's one of my questions, and I'm curious to see what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Oh, sorry. You can answer and then I'll go.
So I just want to comment. The Miami-Dade County Public Schools has a program called Cultural Passport, in which there are various efforts for kids to go to student matinees all over the county and at different things. It is limited in funding. So for us, for example, for Miami New Drama last season, they would pay for a certain number of buses, and we wanted to bring more kids to more performances, so we had to do our own fundraising to be able to fund additional school performances. But that's kind of the central way that kids are getting out to the ARST or to other South Dade Performing Arts Center is Cultural Passport.
Love it. And like workshops and like getting them in and things like that. I feel like it's probably already happening. I just don't know, but I'm curious. Carlos, go.
Something I think a lot about when I think about opportunity with regards to Miami is the idea of how a region can really impact the type of artist that you become. So I have based a lot of my work in Philly after living in in Miami for about 20 years. And something that you encounter a lot in Philly is a lot of devised work, a lot of experimental work, a lot of ensemble-driven work, people who work without scripts. And I realized, like, something I was reflecting on the whole time that I was here in the past week was I would actually be a very different artist if I stayed in Miami. And in that vein, it felt like a missed opportunity. Like, I wonder what would have happened and what kind of artist I had become if I had stayed in Miami, which feels like a much more, I guess the impression that I get is often a lot of new work, but also a lot of improvisational theater that happens here, a lot of improv. And I think the opportunity for me is about the type of artist you become over the course of your development and how a scene can really impact what you are now. Like, I have a frickin' parentheses in my name. Like, I'm this weird, like, alien cuttlefish that just floats around and, like, gathers groups of people to, like, move their bodies in weird ways that, like, I think that I miss Miami in that vein, because I think there was something lost in the process of working in a different scene.
So sorry. So I have an interesting experience in that I left. I went to New York for a little bit after graduating, and then I spent 8 years in Los Angeles. And when I moved here, I moved here for financial reasons, and I felt like I had failed. What happened then that surprised me is that I ultimately worked more, and I got to do more things. And I got to play characters that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to play in Los Angeles or in New York. And I don't know if I am just fortunate. Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know if I am just fortunate, but I got opportunities here that I didn't get at the other places. And I don't know if it's a, pond thing or what it is, but yeah.
Look, Miami, you don't have to translate who you are, which is the greatest thing that the city can offer you. You don't have to translate. You don't have to substantiate. You don't have to excuse who you are. You don't have to make it palpable for the white folk, like I've literally been asked to do in other places. What other places offer you is that opportunity to be challenged by a higher standard. If I hear another joke about a croqueta or a chancleta, I'm just like, come on, I've never been hit with a chancleta. But I was raised on death threats. So there's an opportunity there for something different. I think we have to raise our standard, our personal standard, right? And I think what other cities offer us is that there's more variety in the approaches to theater. Like I see devised theater and it makes me angry beyond words because I'm a writer. I love a script. I love a kitchen sink script. When people start to devise my stuff, I'm like, no, go somewhere else to do that. Like I'm death threats back because you are what you're raised on. But I think that Miami offers that great opportunity to come back. I mean, I lived in New York for 22 years. Every role that I auditioned for was, yes, mister, you can have my sister. She's almost a virgin, you know, like that kind of stuff. Or like, no, mister, don't do my son. You know, all that stupidity, which is why I started writing. Right? But Miami lets you be who you are. And I haven't looked back. Like now I have to go up to New York for some industry stuff. I have to go to Chicago for some industry stuff. I don't feel like it. Because there's always that moment of, well, that's how Cubans are. Or that's how, you know, so the immediacy of the truth of your story that Miami offers you is invaluable. But you have to raise your standard as an artist. Don't go for the low-hanging fruit. When I said Cubans love a mirror, I meant that in a good way and a bad way. Because when we're challenged, it's a little tough for us to take, but we should be challenged like everybody else. Like the blackface thing that happened. That was a biracial Cuban actress that did that. And to their credit, they had a forum and they talked it out and there was a new understanding, right? But we have to challenge each other. That's what Miami lacks, not opportunity. The best matinees that I had were student matinees, but by far. I mean, I love those kids and it was packed, right? I teach in schools as well. It's amazing. It's about raising our own standard as we develop as artists and demanding more for ourselves and challenging ourselves and doing things that we don't like. Like I don't like devised work, but I'll do it because I'll learn something from it. Absolutely. If you're an artist, life has got to be your buffet, right? So to me, it's more about standard than anything else.
Yes, the Ernesto Gamboa Project initiated the forum of the blackface. That was because we felt that it was important to have that dialogue, that discussion about how something like that on stage affect us, you know, and it's really put us in a very discriminatory position, which many of the actors and actresses at the event did not understand at the moment. We really tried to convince, but it was really hard for them to understand the concept that it was painful for us. Anyway, it was a long situation. But here's an opportunity that, since this is, we're talking about opportunities here, let me ask those of you who are here, how many of you have received an award or recognition for the work that you do, either as an actor or actress or producer or writer? How many of you have received awards around here? Okay, well, now here's an opportunity that we can put together here. What about creating your own award ceremony for recognizing the hard work and the time that you put into writing the script and all that? An opportunity for an entrepreneur to really put together an event here. You can start locally by awarding those who are here in Florida and then extend it to the nation. That could be something, an opportunity to also bring attention not only to those here in Florida, but also nationwide. So that's an opportunity that I'm presenting to you to think about.
Just a couple, because I think that the challenge as the opportunity is something important. I think that's a great idea, but I also think that it doesn't help the problem, which is that then we're congratulating ourselves and then the congratulations happening over there, and then it's the divide also. Like, I think that you're right. I think that we do have to be like, well, what's our metric, right? What Carmen was saying, what's our metric, what's our standard? And an example is actually Michael's play, The Cubans. When we did the workshops and the readings of The Cubans up in New York, just the fact that there was a word in Spanish is like, wow, oh my God, this is so... You're pushing the boundary. Oh my God, it's Cubans not talking, they're like talking about family problems. Oh my God. And then we had a reading here in Miami, and then the actors were like, yeah, so what? And then we really had to ask ourselves the questions. It was like, well, what the hell is this play about? Like, okay, it sells in New York, because they're not used to seeing people constantly talking the way that they talk. And then here, everybody's used to that, or the cast is used to that. They're like, this is my life. What are you saying? Right? And then the challenge became different. I think that it's the opportunity now is that what we have, and I like to think big, what we have is like a micro, like a study lab for the rest of the country, right? Either we continue dividing ourselves and we continue saying, great, this is the Latino award, I'm gonna give it to Alex, and this one, and this one, and this one, or we start saying, we are people, and our work is different. And we have to get accustomed in the United States to understanding different cultures. That it is okay to, Che Yu, there's a director, Che Yu, and he talks about this all the time. He talked about it, he was like, we have to get to the place where all the stories are all of our stories, where the Jewish story is as impactful to me as it is that my Cuban story is as impactful to the next person, so that we're actually having a conversation, not what's happening a lot in New York, is the token play. Okay, all people of color, let's pick the one play in the season to make sure that we check off that box, then let's do that. And that's an opportunity that we have here that nobody cares, everybody's different. So now the standard does have to go up, like Carmen said.
Yeah. So this is a really great topic that I want us to just delve a little bit deeper, and it goes to what Carmen said about you don't have to translate who you are here. So how does that help us raise the standard of practice here, right? So how can Miami be a hub for Latinx theater across the country? Because of the diversity of the Latinx community here, right? We've also said in this convening that Miami is the port of entry for so many folks coming from across the globe. And so what opportunities does that create, in particular for us to raise the standard of practice here in Miami? So if we want to go here.
I don't,
or if you wanted to respond.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this is a direct response to that, but as everyone's sort of been talking, I think of the people in this room, and I think of, it's not, I didn't, again, not close to me. I think of the people in this room, and I think again about, I think about company. We don't have that here we don't have an all-inclusive company of Latino artists. There are companies in this town, and there are some Spanish-speaking Latino companies, but there isn't something that uses all of us, you know, all of our perspectives, all of our sort of places in the community, right? The fact that some of us do work at some of the, I don't know even what to call it, establishment places, the ones that have been around for a long time, and the ones that work at the smaller theaters. I think we have to use all of our resources and come together. I think that's an opportunity that we everyone in this room can sort of do that.
Yeah, did you want to go? Just a quick note to that. I think people are very curious about Miami right now, in general, not just theater specifically. I mean, TCG was hosted here. This is hosted here. Like, things are happening. I saw Queen of Basel at Studio Theater in DC. DC is a diverse place, Chocolate City represent, right? But it's also very gentrified. And the theater community there, the people who go to the shows are white and old for the most part. And I went to see Queen of Basel, which is the most Miami frickin' play to come out of here. And everyone was like this. They were like, oh my goodness. They didn't know what to do with themselves. And it was like Vicky was saying, yes, obviously we can like do a thing where someone says one Spanish word and they're impressed. But this was an example of something that was more than that. And I think if we can get these plays and stories that are being created here and just keep taking them out there, there's gonna be like so much success. Because Miami is so far removed and it's so mysterious to a lot of people who aren't from here. We ourselves don't even know how to define it. So I feel like one of those questions could be, how do we get our plays and our stories out there more? Like, take the Amparo experience, take it to New York, like, you know, do all this stuff, because people will respond, and they are responding.
Something that I wanted to address was your sense of community. And I lived in Chicago and I live in New York now. And I think that what's great about living outside of Miami is that as a Latino community or Latinx community, we all know each other and we support each other. And that's in New York, whether I work in one theater and I meet this actor, they've worked with other people, and there's a sense of camaraderie that we're all in it together. And I think one of the opportunities that I keep hearing is this division between Spanish language theater, English theater, Cuban American artists, and how we can connect. How can we be more of a united front that can help elevate our status in this country.
So I don't know if you meant the word company literally like one company, but I think what you're describing is an ecosystem, right? And I think it's really important that the ecosystem has to grow. We should not expect that any one or even two or three companies together are going to be, you know, the Latino company or the all-inclusive and get to touch everybody, right? It has to be an ecosystem in which because we all have so many voices, right? So we have to all grow together. There are many underutilized venues in Miami that have opportunity for more things to happen, whether it's Dade County Auditorium, whether it's South Dade Performing Arts Center, I mean, all over the place. So instead of waiting for, you know, other people to produce plays and cast us in them or, you know, tell our stories, I think it's up to us and the people in this room to find those venues and say like, hey, there's nothing happening, you know, this month at next month at Dade County Auditorium. What can we figure out how to produce? And again, coming up with the financial models that will make sense. But, you know, I love the saying, like, if you don't have a seat at the table, make your own damn table.
And I'm leaving. All of this is beautiful, but if we don't have Tallahassee funding or supporting us, my beautiful school, New World School of the Arts, got another $100,000 cut. So far, we're at $600,000 cut from our school, which is, so we do can and stick theater, basically, and do our own thing. Way back when Governor Martinez took all the grant money away from touring children's theater, and I mean, there was not a great school that didn't see live theater coming through, and so that audience kind of died away. But tax incentives for film, I mean, we're constantly fighting for that. That brings money, that brings opportunity for us, and I mean, when we go to that voting, and we need to vote, we need to really look at all those people and go, who really supports the arts and is not going to go say, cut this and cut that, because we are responsible for who's in the house and in the whatever, and take them out.
Another opportunity that I just from hearing everyone's talk is, aside from government funding, is finding unconventional partnerships. There are a lot of other industries that are making lots of money here. The tech industry is here. I mean, we see buildings. I mean, so many apartment and developments being built here, which is why I love Motel Stories and their partnership. And also, everyone comes here to retire. So what collaborations can we make? What intergenerational collaborations can we start making? In our break session for grant funding, one of the terms that came up was a needs assessment. What's a needs assessment for the community, and seeing where those partnerships can come up.
So I think we have to remember there are three main revenue streams for theater, right? So government, fundraising, and earned income, just ticket sales. And so we can't just ever focus on one. But when it does come to government, grant funding is being cut because of the language that sometimes we are responsible for using. They think of it in terms of economic development. You want more money from government, you have to talk their language, not our language. And so if we talk about theater as economic development, as opportunities like Adriana just mentioned, there are many industries that are making a lot of money. How are we talking their language so they understand that the value of what we're bringing to the table?
Since you mentioned that as well, as far as revenue streams for theaters, I think we left out one, which is education, and not just for young people, for adults, and that's mainly what funds our theater. We do acting training through improv, and even though we do a lot of comedy shows, we are called Villain Theater because it's not just that. And our goal is to bring in anyone. And as far as opportunities, like I was saying before about our amazing high schools, a lot of them leave. Most of them stay. and their parents or whatever pressures tell them to say, hey, take a regular job. And, you know, those people would love to be doing theater, and they don't have that extra step. And allowing them that okay, maybe they couldn't do it in university, but they still have this amazing talent. They still have all this energy. They would love to put it into something. That's an opportunity that I could tell you has worked here in this environment. And we shouldn't think of that as only for kids. And as far as being able to, it has a dual effect. You get new artists who bring in new audiences who also now have a greater appreciation for theater that they didn't have before. And as far as how it works for us is that those students become performers who bring in shows, who then do the shows that attract more students. And that's a very replicable model. And it's something that when I think someone had mentioned that, being able to create opportunities for yourself. I think there's a little bit of removal of ego as well that needs to happen, which is, am I just doing shows for myself? Did I start a theater company because it was my dream to be the person in charge? Instead of creating opportunities for other people to make sure that they're involved. And you know what? When I made that change, that's when I started acting the most, started directing the most, because now there's a lot of other bodies. I mean, we have to think of it like this is like a cultural war. You know, we need the soldiers, we need the horses, you know, and stop thinking the sense of like, yeah, we'll have this prestige event. That's cool up here. And maybe we'll get grant money because that'll be impossible to fund any other way. Or we could think of it as like, let's get us all together and we could do whatever we want.
Yes, so we have just a few minutes left, so I want to prioritize voices we haven't heard yet in the circle.
Hi, my name's QR. I just recently graduated from FIU Theater, and I just wanted to touch a little bit on what was just finished said. I am a theater artist, and the only reason I have become and been able to continue being a theater artist is because of scholarships. I would not be an artist or an actress or an actor if it were not like for a full ride I received from FIU. If not, I would probably be in another major. And I think that's something that we really need to think about when we're thinking, how do we bring this community up in Miami? There is kind of this stigma of if you're going to be a theater artist, you will starve. And a lot of our history comes from, having to kind of struggle and having two immigrant parents. The last thing they want to see is their child struggling. It's a different kind of struggle. But I think that's something that we also really need to think about when we're cultivating the new artists or the new audience members. I think a big problem is we need to have more scholarships, more grants, more financial opportunities so that students like me feel comfortable doing and pursuing the things that they love the most. The reason I'm getting an MFA program out of school is because I'm getting a full ride. So I think, I wish that financial scholarships and grants were more available or a bigger focus. So artists or people of talent have so much to offer in this community and in the country have the opportunity and feel safe enough to bring that art and that heart forward.
Great. All right, this will be our last thought. Yeah.
Something I'm also curious about, and I know there was another breakout group for grant writing and budgets and such, was there ever a conversation about crowdfunding and donor bases and individual giving and things of that nature? Because I think also an additional way to think about raising funds for your projects is to start building a donor base. And it's not necessarily about knowing old rich white people, but also finding the people within your own community that actually can give small dollar donations to eventually accumulate to an amount of $3,000 or something that then does not make you necessarily beholden to grants, because sometimes grant writing can be a crapshoot. When you really build all this effort into writing the proposal, making sure you're courting the program officers, then you suddenly don't get that proposal and you're out of a project, right? So I'm always curious about what that conversation is like in the context of Miami.
So I think we are out of time now, but I want to thank everyone in the inner and outer circle, and I want to do a call back to Carmen and for us to just reflect, all of us in both circles, on the nature of abundance. It's something I've already experienced here in Miami from just a colada that you share, that is meant to be shared with everybody. If you don't know what those little cups are for, that's what they're for. And if you just look at, the amount of empanadas we had yesterday and the breakfast, we come from a place of abundance culturally. We don't come from cultures in which we resource hoard, right? We resource share. And that is the root of the commons as well. So I want us all to just reflect today to think about abundance. Where do you have abundance and where could it be shared, and what are the opportunities for sharing that abundance? So thank you very much, and I'll hand it over to Armand.
So that's the perfect note, because Abigail and I were chatting over in this corner, being like, we should inventory the resources of this community. So we're actually going to put big Post-its on the walls entering the space, or somewhere in the near the front of this black box, and there will be Post-its and note cards and pens for if you steward a resource in this community. Write it down if you're willing to share it, or figure out how to share it with other folks in this room, and stick them up there. And if you're seeking resources, go to that wall and see where they might be, where they might land. And so we want to offer that space between now and the afternoon session. That said, I want to acknowledge our live streamers. Thank you for joining us, and we'll sign off from